almost everything, but you should use it on the buses and not on the individual sounds, because if you do it too much, it will sound too flat and your track will sound kind of boring. But if you do it like this within the groups, and especially on synth sounds or on drum sounds, that will sound amazing. I don't use it for the bass sounds, for instance, because a bass sound is kind of low in the frequency spectrum, so I want the bass sounds to be treated as one, basically. Because if you do it with the OTT, your drum section and your synths will start to sound like it comes a bit alive, you know. So and the bass sounds, you want to have control of the bass sounds more like that. So I would put the OTT as the first plugin here in the synth section, and then I would go with we have a synth section. So let's go with a delay, and I will put the wet signal to 0. So I will have the dial here in the mixer to 0, because now I can automate the delay. So let's say I want a delay for the synths. I can just automate this dial here to put more delay or less delay. Then I want a reverb here, and same thing goes here. I can either go with the wet signal here up and down, or I can just put this dial here, which I would do. So I would go to a 0 here. Then after that, I want to create an EQ, a paramedic EQ. And same thing goes here. I don't want any low end, and I don't want the highest frequencies as well. I would actually do it a bit narrower, because some of the synth sounds will have their the most sounding elements in around up to 16,000 hertz. So I would do it like that, and also put it a bit higher like that as well. So now I have my synth mixer channel or mixer group set it up like that. Then let's go to the bass, and with the bass I want almost everything to be in mono here. So it's very important to have your bass sounds in mono, because you don't want the bass sounds to start to rumbling around in different stereo settings and stuff like that, because you will get a very, very muddy sounding track, you know. So for bass sounds, create this bass track in mono. I'm going to go to a plugin. So let's go to the Fruity Stereo Shaper, and I'm going to load up a preset here, which is LR to LL. You can see this is basically taking the left signal and the right signal and put it to the left. And this is what mono is. So I'm going to take it like that, and now everything which will go through this bass group will be set in mono. Then I'm going to open up an EQ. So let's put this EQ, the Paramedic EQ2, just to get some better view here. And I'm going to put everything, let's say above 400 hertz would be basically cut it off. And you can see that in this section here, you can see that the bass section starts around here, around to 300 hertz. But I'm going to have it set to around 400 hertz here. And the sub is going to around here, around, as you can see, 38 hertz, somewhere around there. So I'm going to cut it off there as well, just to, we don't want the sub to be too much there, you know. So let's do it like that. So now we basically have everything going through the group of the bass mixer channel here, and it will go through mono. So it will first like getting the signal to be in mono, and then it will take all of that signal and cut off everything besides this section here in the frequency spectrum. And if you do this with all of your different sounds, you can see we use EQ for everything now. So let's say we have a bass section here in the frequency spectrum. Then we have synth section, which will be here, around here. And then we have same thing with the drum section will be around here. But we're leaving space for the bass in this section and in this section. And here we have our bass sounds. So now if we create a mix down, it will actually sound clean. But we don't have to use our mixdown because we already have this set up in our template. So now when we create our sounds and our track, you know, and put our different stuff, like say we have a sampler, we can put it to synths immediately, and FL keys as well. And we want this plugin to be made for different basses, so we create it for we assign this to our 4th channel, which is our bass group here. So now we have a nice mixdown where we're creating our, so we don't have to worry a lot about the different mixing things you have to do when creating your track, you know, because sometimes it sounds amazing when you're in that creative stage, you know, and you're throwing in a million different sounds and it sounds great. But then when you start to mixing, you feel like your track is getting like boring and very thin because you're starting to get rid of different stuff, and you're putting things in mono and different stuff. But if you do it within the creative stage, when you're creating the track and you already had it set up like this, then when you're starting to create your mixdown, it will still sound amazing. So that is why it's really important to do it. And one more thing that I would like to do here is to go to the master. I would put our OTT plugin here as well. So let's go to more plugins. I will put on the OTT. And I always use the OTT on my master, but I want to be kind of careful with this one for the master. And then I also want to have a limiter on. So I will go to the Fruity limiter and just put it like that. And this will make the signal to just go to 0 dB and not above that, so we're not clipping our signal or anything like that. And you have to make sure that the Fruity limiter plugin is the last plugin in the plugin chain here for the master. And the limiter is, I think, the most important thing to have in your master, because that will limit the sound to 0 dB so it won't clip, even though you have volumes that are set like very, very loud here. So what I would do now, I will actually delete this pattern 1 here, and I would delete it like that. So now it's clean. I don't have anything on here. I can just start to create my track. So now I can just go to here, save as, and this is my best template. Save, and now I can just create my track by just going to my best template here. Alright guys, that is it for the project template section. Let's see you in the next lecture.